Good morning, buenos dias, bonjour, ni hao, sin chao, what's up? It's me, Mr. Jordan. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 11 of The Handmaid's Tale. Brief recap and summary of chapter 11. The narrator, Offred, is taken to the gynecologist's office, and the doctor there makes a pass at her, gropes her, and then propositions her for sex. And he tells her he's doing it for her own benefit because all of the commanders are old and infertile. Digging into some of the analysis and the closer reading of the text here, what happens when Offred's taken to the doctor's office is a clear example of a double bind that she's put in. This is a catch-22 scenario. It's lose or lose. She's being oppressed and forced into an uncomfortable decision by one man wielding power over her against the society of men who already wield power over her. So she's completely powerless here and has no good choice. If she doesn't do what he asks, he can get her in trouble by reporting her, supposedly marking down on her chart that she's infertile. If she does do as he asks and goes along with him, has sex with the doctor, she's obviously breaking the rules of Gilead, where she's only supposed to be performing the sexual act as part of the ceremony. She's left with no choices. She's stripped, naked, we're told, left alone, put up on the gurney, poked and prodded. So now there's a throwback to that chapter earlier where there was the bony, scrawny chicken in the kitchen that was being poked and prodded by Rita as it was prepared for dinner. Well, now Offred is literally in the same situation with her own body being poked and prodded. Theme of livestock, which I think is in general is an allusion to Animal Farm. The doctor also is a real slimy character, right? He calls her honey. He's using this patronizing, diminutive tone, clearly taking advantage of her. You know, he's literally touching her, groping her, doing things that would have been illegal regardless of whether it's in America or in Gilead. So he's abusing his power, in other words. When the doctor calls her honey, this is also a reference to Milk and Honey, the grocery store where she does her shopping. She's being compared to produce, overarching symbol that Atwood has throughout the text of handmaids and women's bodies being turned into produce. In Gilead, the women essentially are being farmed. They're an industrial resource. And this is definitely a reference, or at least was influenced by, what happened in Romania and Sesesco. Atwood has said again and again, she didn't make anything up in this book. Nothing that happens in The Handmaid's Tale hasn't happened at some point in human history. And in this specific instance, I think the state control over women's bodies that happened in Romania is being used as inspiration for what's happening to women's bodies in Gilead. Another reference here to Offred's breathlessness, right? To suffocating. So she says, literally, the penalty is death if she goes through with this, and that she's feeling choked, or it's too dangerous, he says, about his proposition to impregnate her. We've seen what happens to the offenders too, right? The bodies end up on the wall, hanging there like pieces of meat in a plastic bag. And this is the fate that awaits Offred if she goes along with the doctor. Whereas if she doesn't go along with him, she's going to be shipped off to the horrible colonies in the off-world. Again, there's a bit of a somber note here where it says, it's the choices we're terrified of. So she's been inculcated, right? We're realizing that some of the mind warping and the brainwashing has started to work. Where she once lived in a world where she was free to choose and do as she pleased, the very thought of choosing, of having to pick between these two terrible sides of the coin, is now terrifying to her. Solitaire. So solitaire can mean alone. It could also be a reference to any number of board games and card games that an individual plays by themselves. And so in this chapter, we see the narrator is playing a game by herself where she's trying to choose between this catch-22 double bind the doctor's put her in. She's playing a game of Risk. Solitaire also, this one's a bit more eccentric or antiquarian of a reference, but there used to be a few different species of birds called solitaires related to the dodo that went extinct. So Atwood may be playing on that as well. Smear. So to smear means to coat or to mark. In this case, it's literally a reference to a pap smear during the gynecological examination. But to smear can also be to smear someone's name, right? To smudge or ruin their reputation. And this is what the doctor's capable of doing to her. He can smear her name by marking down on her sheet that she's infertile. Covert. So covert means something that's not acknowledged or not out in the open. A covert, like a noun, is also the place where game that's being hunted hides. There's so much depth, so many levels in the diction and the word choice that Atwood uses. A covert is also part of a bird in ornithology. So really, like, the levels and the mind-boggling amount of wordplay in this book can be overwhelming, but it's also fun to start to understand some of these things that Atwood does and some of the ways an accomplished poet can really tug us along and let us have fun on multiple levels of enjoying the book and the reading and the wordplay. Disposable. So something that's disposable obviously is something that you throw out after using, one use only. And in this sense, the women or their bodies have become disposable. Disposable is also a reference, I think, to disposable income, right? So this is the money that you use that's excess. It's the superficial, what's left over at the end of all your expenses and you get to have fun with or play with. Barren, in reference to land, means a place that can't produce, that won't have enough vegetation. Obvious reference to the idea of infertility. Barren can also mean empty of results or production, so nothing came of the act. It also literally means a female or an animal that cannot be pregnant. Finally, barren means empty of value or meaningless. So again, we see so much in this chapter, so much depth in the wordplay and in the choice that Atwood makes when she's writing and giving us this language. Thanks so much for watching. That was chapter 11 of The Handmaid's Tale. Next up, chapter 12.